So we now know how to install Ruby and Selenium and Cucumber and take control of the browser and just do some basic scripting. So let's go a little bit further now and create our own little test framework using Cucumber, which is where things start to get a bit more interesting. So let's do a new project, and we'll create an empty project, and we'll call it, I don't know, Lazy Auto. Create this window. Right, the first thing we want to do, so the way that this works is you create a bunch of files called feature files, and the feature files contain your tests. So first of all, we'll create a folder and we'll call it features, and that's where we will keep our feature files. And if I do file, new file, we'll call the first one hello.feature. So you'd basically, the naming convention for this is basically you would call your file something that identifies what it is you're testing, what feature it is that you're looking at. So we'll look at that hello world bit of the test web page that we used earlier, but you might call this something like login page or checkout page, or you know. So let's go, we're calling it hello.feature. Okay, you can see that this already knows RubyMine. It's very good that it knows that we're writing a feature file, and everything should start coming up on the IntelliSense. So let's give our feature file a name. So feature space, feature colon space, and we'll call it hello world. And the way that you write this is like an entire subject unto itself, but using something called BDD, this is the way that you write your tests. Your tests are written in BDD format. You may have seen it before, but essentially you're writing each test as a scenario. So let me just give you an example here. So we write a scenario and we called it, let's pretend that we were writing it for a login page, and then we typed in and one of our tests was for a successful login. Have I misspelled successful? Is it one L? Yes. Right. So basically, your tests are written as scenarios, and those scenarios are in the format of given, when, then. Given is the state that you want to be in when you start your test. When is the action that you take, and then is what should happen once you've taken that action. So for example, you could put given I log in using correct details. Actually, no, that wouldn't be that. Let's see. Given I am on the login screen, when I log in with correct details, then I am logged in. That would be a test. You could then also write a negative test. Given I log in, you could then write another scenario for unsuccessful login, and you could write given I'm on the login screen, when I log in with incorrect details, then I am not logged in. You can also add, the other thing you can add to this is you can add an and. So you could actually put something else here. So you put I am not logged in and I am informed that my login details are incorrect. So there you go. That's essentially in a very, very small nutshell what given, when, then is and what scenarios are. I could talk about these quite extensively, but we won't do that because the whole point in this is to build a Cucumber framework, and there's lots of other blogs and articles that you can read on this format of writing a test. So let's instead just go ahead and write one that does something. So we've got our test website here. One of the things that we can do on here is click this button here. So it says here is some text. If I click that button, it says hello world. So let's write a test where you click this button and it says hello world, and we basically verify that this information is displayed. So we're going to call the test. Let me think what would be a good thing to call the scenario. Let's call it clicking hello world results in text being displayed, and we'll put given I am on the lazy automation test page. When I click hello world, then hello world text is displayed. And that is the first part of our test here. What sits underneath this now, this feature file talks to something called a step definition file, and that is where we define the each of these steps here, and we actually put some code in there to make it do stuff. So what it does, which is quite handy again with RubyMine, and it will actually do this if you run it from the command prompt as well. But if I right click the scenario and I click on run, it will now try and run this, and it should tell me, there we go, you can implement step definitions for undefined steps with these snippets. So this these little snippets here are our steps that we want to put in our step definition file. So let's do that, shall we? Let's go to the features folder, and we will create a new folder, and let's call this step underscore definitions. Okay, and in the step definitions folder, let's create a new file, and we'll call the step definitions file, let's just call it hello steps. Again, you'd probably call this something that tallies up with your feature file. So if you were writing some tests for a login screen, you might call this login steps .rb. So this is a Ruby file. So there we go. So what we can do in this file now is we can just put all of our steps. There we go. And now we go back here. You can see these aren't highlighted anymore. Each of these will now run each of these. And if you want to navigate quickly back and forth, which you might want to do if you're doing a lot of writing a lot of tests, you can either middle click or control click to click on one of these and go straight to the bit of code that's being executed. So if we run it this time, you'll see that we now get told what it's done here is it's basically telling us that these steps are pending, so there's no code in them yet. So you can see in the results we've got one scenario, it's got 3 steps. The first step is pending, so it's not even bothered trying to run the next 2 because it's not going to get to them. And let me just give you an example of how this works. So pretty much anything I write in here will get executed when I run the test. I am a step def. Then I come here and I right click that and I click run. You can see so it's ran that bit of code in the first step def, and then we've just basically, so it's 1 pending, 1 skipped, 1 passed, so it actually passed the first step. We managed to run that bit of code okay. So let's now do something a bit more useful. Let's get it to do what the given says, which is I am on the lazy automation test page. So what we want to do is, first of all, we want to require just like as we did in the last couple of videos. Just get it to require our Selenium WebDriver. And we want the driver to equal Selenium WebDriver for Chrome. Let's just run that now and just check that opens up Chrome. Cool. So we're getting somewhere now. And then we want to navigate to the web page. So driver.navigate.to, and we need our URL, which is, let's copy it from here, lazyautomation.co.uk/lazy1.html. And I'm going to put a sleep in here just to check that it's there. We can see that loading. Cool. That's all working. So the next thing that we want to do is implement our iClick Hello World. So if you remember, we go back to our website here, right click on Hello World, click inspect, and you can see it's got an ID here of Hello One. So we'll just use that ID to click Hello World. If you remember, which driver dot find score element, and we want to click by ID, and the ID for the Hello World button is that, and we'll just put dot click. There we go. Now this is going to cause an issue. Let me just show you how this runs first of all before I correct it. So basically what's happened here is the this step definition here has, oh, and it's got another error here as well. That's the me doing some incorrect syntax. Right, let's run that again, shall we? Cool, right. So now you can see we've got an undefined local variable called driver, because this is something called variable scope, which again, I can let you look up that on your own time, or would look at it in a more advanced video, but we're trying to just show you how to write a Ruby Cucumber framework, and we don't want to go off on lots of tangents. But very quickly, these step definitions here, you've defined a variable here called driver. The driver can only be seen within this step here that we've got. So when we get to this step, and when this line, this bit of this, any code that we write in here can't see this variable. So what we can do is let's take that out of a step definition, and we'll just put it at the top here. And now all of these step defs should be able to see the driver. So this one here should be able to navigate to the website. This one here should be able to click the Hello World button. Let's see if that works. So that looks good. So we've got two steps that have now passed. So it's gone there, click the button, and now the last step that we want here is to validate that that's happened. So let's have a look at the website again, and get rid of that. So as you can see, we've got some text here. It says hello world when we click it. If I just refresh the page, put that back to normal, right click that, click on inspect, and let's have a look at that element. So we've got a paragraph here and it's got an ID and the ID is test. So what we can do is we can just get the text from that and then we can just validate what it is at the moment. So let's just see if we can get the text as it is right now. So what we're going to do is I'll go to the first step def here and we're going to try and get that text. If I put my text equals, and we'll try and get the text from the text field. So we want driver dot find element, and we'll do it by ID comma, and it is just, what's that again, test. So that's the element. Normally at the end of this, if we were doing something with it, we'd be typing click or something like that, but what we're going to do is just going to put text. So what this line of code here does is it will just basically take the text from that label and it will just assign it to my text. So let's just check that works okay. So we're going to put puts my text, and that's just to check that we're getting that back. Now we run it again. And you can hit some text, which is what that says. And then if we do it again, we just copy and paste this out of here, and we now put that in here, you can see that that should show us the text after it's changed. And there you go, you can see here is some text, and then after the button's been clicked, do the same thing again, and it now says hello world. So what we're now going to do is, let's get rid of that, and let's get rid of that. We'll call it something else. Let's call it label text. And we want the label text, we want to just look at it at this point and just ensure that it says hello world. So the way that we do this is we write something called an assertion. There are lots of ways of writing an assertion. I'm going to show you one method here. We're going to use the expect method to do the assertion. So we're going to do expect. And the way that this works is you basically have a value in here, and then we compare that value to another value. So if I put something in here like, I don't know, lazy. So we've got, I expect this string lazy dot to, and then we'll put EQ. So we're basically expecting that to be equal to, and then if I put lazy here, and then I run it, that passes because that is equal to that. If I change that to something else, like I expect lazy to be equal to hello, obviously that's going to fail. There we go, and we get told I expected hello, but I got lazy. So let's use that, and we'll basically we'll put label text, and we'll put I expect label text to be equal to, and when we click the button, oops, let's get rid of that. I expect the label text to equal hello world. And run. And there you go, a cucumber test. If we then wanted to write it again, let me show you that failing there. So we basically made it go to hello world 1 2 3, It's obviously going to fail the test. So there you have it, your first cucumber test. In the next video, we'll look at tidying this up a little bit and adding some more bits and pieces, and we'll have a look at scenario outlines as well.